Chris Armas is out after just 11 games, regular season games in charge. A single victory during that time, Toronto FC have let go of their head coach, which of course brings up plenty of questions for us to ponder in this week's edition of Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. Where does the club go from here? Is the season still salvageable? And so many more. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and helping me to work through all of this week, it's Jeffrey Pinesker. Michael Singh will join us a little bit later. He's in the presser right now, trying to get all of the latest on all things Toronto FC, club in crisis. But Jeff, we knew we were going to get to, or we figured we would probably get to this at some point, but yeah, it's finally here. Chris Armas out. How are you feeling?
I'm pondering how jealous I am of your haircut, actually. It's pretty fantastic, and I need one desperately. So we'll start there. I missed a lot of your questions.
Chris Armas conversation with a haircut. Wow, that's a plot shot on the way out. I'm sorry. That was unnecessary.
I didn't even realize I was doing that, but all right, let's go there. How do I feel? I mean, I don't like seeing anybody lose their job. You know, I think it was a foregone conclusion, but how do I feel? I've been dealing with a whole lot of revisionist history over the last couple of days. With respect to how Greg Vanney was an unimpeachable genius that was infallible, and certainly that people were trying to revise the Armas situation in that it was all bad and that we should have known better, and I think that ignores the fact that when he came in, despite our pervasive underwhelmingness, he said some of the right things. I know in the first couple of press conferences, I got damned excited. I mean, the idea of an attacking, fluid, aggressive, I don't want to say high press, but here it comes, high press style of football seemed exciting. Putting Bradders in a situation where he was, we were going to turn back the clock 10 years seemed exciting. So it's so easy to piss on his grave, and I don't want to do that. Nobody. I'm sure he's devastated. There's no amount of payout on his contract that is going to lessen the burden. And there's a lot of there's a lot of things that were stacked against him right from the get-go. Let's not even talk about the concrete stuff like a roster and all that stuff. Let's talk about the usual excuses, right? Like, this is the only coach in the history of our club to have an entire tenure where they've never set foot in a game at our home stadium, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that sucks. And that can't be ignored. I don't like seeing anybody get fired. I don't like the idea that he'll be judged against this in the same way that he was judged against his performance at Red Bull. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily fair. And what's the argument? He shouldn't have taken the job in the first place. That's asking a head coach to not have ambition, right? Of course he's going to take that job, and of course he's going to think he can right the ship. And of course, he's going to want to see his system at play. So, I mean, I'm glad he's gone, but I'm certainly not going to do backflips over someone's misery, right? Like that, the argument that a big club wouldn't make a hire like that is not. It doesn't wash, right? A big club does make hires like that. A big club does put their chips on the table and make the risky hires, right? I mean, look, I've never vouched for this before in my life. When Laurent Blanc and Vieira were up for this gig, I was maybe the only person saying that's maybe a terrible idea because they don't understand MLS rules, and especially somebody like Laurent Blanc is going to come in and say, well, why can't I get Antoine Griezmann? And we'll be like, well, that's our whole salary cap. Like, who are you going to play the other 11 positions? But now I think that's absolutely what we need to do. Mm-hmm. I think because warts and all, I actually think that that's absolutely what we need to do. If anything, this has proven to us that, maybe Ali is better off behind the scenes with his notebook, making the deals and dealing with the maths and stuff like that. And he shouldn't have that much of a hand in running the team and the day-to-day operations. Certainly, I'd like to see the pendulum shift. I mean, I'd love to see a Euro guy that is going to have those growing pains. Maybe not where's Antoine Griezmann and why can't I hire him, but lower down on the food chain possibly, and see how we deal with that. Because I think that if we're really going to find out, we've been given a bit of a gift, Mitch. Because we were prepared to watch this whole season go, absolutely pear-shaped, right? And now that we don't have to do that, we've been given an opportunity. So let's shake down all the trees, right? Let's open up the floodgates here. I really like this. I mean, Mike's here, so why don't we bring him on?
Yeah, bring him in, yeah.
I mean, I'm just ranting here, and I really want to hear what Mike's bringing us. Did he also get a haircut? What is going on
Looks
here,
like
you
it.
guys? Yeah. I want to see what happened. Wait, are you muted?
He also doesn't have sound, I don't think.
Yeah,
so.
he has no
That's
sound.
my bad. That's my
Coming in
bad. What's
hot.
going on,
Oh,
fellas?
there we go.
I was
Yeah,
gonna tell
yeah.
you, I got my
Not much.
girlfriend to cut my hair.
Nice.
Guys,
Nice.
is any of your
That's a
significant
double flex
others?
right there.
Yeah, girlfriend and getting a haircut. Let's go.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
any of your significant others like trying to cut your hair? Have you guys gone through that during the pandemic at all?
I've asked many, many times. It's never going to happen because she knows that I'll just if there's one out of place, I'll make her. I won't let it go. So
Yeah.
Honestly,
knows.
I might have to switch over. I'm gonna get her to quit her full-time job and just open up the industry, man. It's not too bad, eh? It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's pretty sick.
I mean, Jack Grealish going long at the top, low on the side. So I'm like, yo, give me that. Let's do it.
So you actually sat down with a picture at the hairdresser, do this, please. What kind of cut do you want? And you walk in and you're like, this one.
Richard's like, yes, I have. We're still together, but it was close. I like it. So yeah, what are you guys talking about? Did I miss anything? Anything important to talk about today? Or
we're sort of setting the table for you to come in with the scoops. You just sat through the press conference. Yeah, give us the scoops.
Well, I guess first, let's start off with the obvious, and that's the Chris Armas firing. And I just want to preface this by saying, you never, ever, ever, no matter what industry that we're in, hope that a man loses their job. So I'm thinking about, in this time, I'm not just thinking about Chris Armas, I'm thinking about his wife, I'm thinking about his 2 kids. That's tough. I also want to say, and as Michael Bradley said in the press conference, this is a man who really had no chance from the get-go. He never got to coach a game at BMO Field. I don't even know if he stepped foot in BMO Field, to be honest with you. He never had a game in front of home fans. And a lot of those mistakes may not come down to just the head coach. There's a chance here that he wasn't set up for absolute success. But in this industry, the reality is, when you don't have the success, and as Ali Curtis mentioned, I think 3-4 times during that press conference, this is a results-oriented business. Toronto FC are on pace for their worst season in MLS history, in Major League Soccer history. They have 5 points from 11 matches. They're dead last in the MLS
power rankings,
despite having arguably the highest payroll in the league. Something, as Chris Armas said, something had to give, and unfortunately, it was Chris Armas that had to give. And now, as we look forward, Bill Manning, Ali Curtis, they don't have a shield anymore. At this point now, the buck stops with Bill Manning and Ali Curtis, and specifically Ali Curtis, because as Joshua Cloak's reporting in The Athletic, this is a guy who kind of stuck his neck out for Chris Armas from the beginning. even though some within the TFC organization didn't necessarily feel like he was the guy to move this team forward. So unfortunately, despite all of the
Was one of those
positive
people Josie Altador? Sorry, I had to give that.
no worries. And despite all of the positive momentum that this team has made moving forward the past 5-6 years, it feels like we've taken an enormous step backwards and lost a lot of that positive momentum. This is no longer a team that's perceived around Major League Soccer as one of the perennial contenders, as one of the juggernauts of Major League Soccer. And it goes to show just how quickly a decline like that can happen. It's unfortunate. It's sad that Chris Armas is the one that had to make way here, but when you lose your entire team like we saw on Saturday, like we saw the last Saturday, when it's not just one or two players that are making silly mistakes, when it's the whole team that seems to have lost motivation and fight and desire to go out there and battle for your coach, to run through a wall for your coach, then that's when you know, like, you got to make a change. When Ralph Priestow's out there looking like he's lost his confidence, when Richie Larea is out there looking like he's lost his confidence, when Chris Mavinga, who's arguably your best defender, is out there putting forth some of the weakest tackles I've ever seen, you know something's got to give. And unfortunately, once again, that was Chris Armas. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I'm going to circle around this a lot today. You know, and we keep removing COVID, and it's so funny how far I've done a complete 180 on this because I'm constantly bringing it up now. But like, yes, in normal times, Ali Curtis sticking his neck out for Armas has a very different value than under the pressure of playing away at home at COVID, right? Under that lens and that context, it becomes a lot less of like a big dick, you know, let's get the New York Red Bulls band back together, and more reactionary, like, who are we going to get? We need someone in that seat. You know, I know this guy personally. The changeover is going to be a lot easier, right? Like it becomes much more of a desperation move than I'm going to stubbornly. I just feel like people are viewing, you know, Curtis sticking his neck out in a before times context. Like, we're playing at BMO, all things are equal. You know, I want my guy come hell or high water. And I don't think that's the case. I think it was a panic move more than anything else. He's around, he's willing to do it. He's not going to cause a lot of trouble. And I think that's all I'll say on that. I don't like the revisionist history. It seems in every aspect, we're very, very quick now to forget about all the detriments and all the things that were stacked against him. And then circling back, I have a huge problem with Michael Bradley coming out and saying that today. Huge. And this is a knee-jerk thing, but you know, let me work it out live in this context. I have a huge problem with this. I mean, last week they brought him out as a defense mechanism, and now this week they're bringing him out as the mea culpa mechanism. You know, like, well, you never really had a chance. Did that need to be said? I mean, did we really need that announced at a press conference? Like, you know, it feels awkward and suspect. Anyway, go ahead.
Like, Bradley's a loyal guy. Armas has been his friend. That was the story coming in. You know, Armas has been a mentor for him, had been someone very important in his life. So he's never going to throw Armas under the bus in any sort of way.
Nor should he. That's a good servant to the club. But then after Sunday, he comes out with the club's blessing and says, you know what, actually, like, he was just warming a seat, and we were all well aware that he was a useless automaton. Like, that it doesn't wash. And you know, if that was the attitude, then how can we not be mad that they hired? Like, I mean, if they're trying to
let me explain why he said it. Again, he essentially prefaced it with the last 18 months, how hard it's been for the team with all of the different factors with COVID and whatnot. He's saying essentially because of that.
Let me interrupt. because he's the guy that interrupted you and said those aren't excuses. So
I wholeheartedly agree. I thought of that.
Not only does he start his thing by saying, that stuff that I wasn't going to talk about, I'm going to talk about, but then I'm going to double down and say that my buddy, like there's no point in saying it. The man is gone. Like you don't need to scrub. You know what I mean? You don't need to start burning all the cardboard cutouts of him in effigy, right? Like he's gone. He's done. I mean, it's of course it didn't work out. So why do we need our club captain now coming out and trying to sugarcoat it? Like, I think the whole point of damage control is to not make more damage. And it feels like that's what just happened. So once again, I'm befuddled. Like it was a meaningless statement. It didn't need to be said. It gave us no confidence. And it actually kind of angers me because the suggestion that everybody knew that they were doomed and did nothing because this or because that, which are the excuses that they're not supposed to be resting on. I mean, what are we doing here? Right? Like it's a weirdo feedback loop. I don't know. It feels like a feedback loop to me. You can get up and say a million other things. You can give me the platitudes about how our new coach has a website where like he lists every tactic as his tactics, and that's wonderful. I love new coach, and let's see what he's got to do. But to just throw tinder on the fire of Chris Armas not being the guy, we know that already. I didn't see any value in that.
Well, yeah. I mean, essentially, he's saying like the onus is on the players, and they essentially let Chris Armas down, right?
Okay.
So that's why, I mean, in combination with the multitude of factors of him dealing with playing away from home in Florida, we don't have to go over them all again. Everyone knows what they are. The reality is that he's saying he as a captain did not do a good enough job. He's saying the players on the field did not do a good enough job, and Chris ultimately pays the price. So I wouldn't dwell too much on that quote. I mean, what is he going to say? He's buddies with Chris Armas. Chris Armas was kind of, I think we can all agree that Chris Armas was sort of given, I don't want to say unfair run, but like he was dealt a poor hand, let's say.
I mean, I mean, I think he was dealt a poor hand is perfect.
He was dealt a very poor hand, right? Because not only did he play away from home, I mean, he never had two designated players starting in his lineup, I believe.
And that's such a good point, because the people that say that we're the highest paid roster, I mean, you take out our DPs and we're absolutely not, right? So we were seeing what that roster was worth on the field.
We still have a very strong roster behind our DPs.
Absolutely.
So I still believe that we should have been better than what we are.
Without question, but to equate the highest roster as in all three DPs on the field with our results is a false positive.
And I think Bill Manning and Ali Curtis kind of hit the nail on the head in the press conference. It's just like, it wasn't necessarily the fact that we weren't winning anymore. It was the fashion which we weren't winning. We talked about it before those games. A game against Nashville, a game against DC United, a game against Cincinnati. Those are 9 points you have to take if you're Toronto FC. You have to. Like, this is a team that ran circles around each one of those clubs last season. Aside from Nashville in the playoffs, of course. But even then, like, they played well.
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
They played well during that game, and obviously they couldn't come away with the result. But it's a change needed to happen. Of course, we were all calling for it. Everyone on TFC Live is calling for it. Media members were calling for it. Chris Armas himself was even calling for a change to happen. Yeah, right.
He knew his number.
So and when it happened, like, Chris Armas understood, as Bill Manning, Ali Curtis said, like, everyone gets the situation. It's just unfortunate now, and like I said, the shield's out of the way. Now real questions are going to be asked. Is it questions about the roster? Is it questions about their play style? Is it questions about, is the fact that they're going to be playing Exploria, or I guess maybe they won't be playing Exploria anymore.
Yeah, I think they're playing Exploria, yeah.
But they're going to have to look deep and hard at this team if things don't get turned around, because the problems may lie beyond the coach, right?
And I think they most certainly do, and we're finding that. But I do think it's a good point of, this was a tougher hire to make, because I do think they thought that Greg Vanney was going to be back, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. So that does make it difficult.
Exactly.
Bringing in a new
Hold
hire.
on. But when they were doing this search, they told us that it was a very extensive search. They told us they've interviewed candidates internally, externally. We heard names that were being linked with them.
Mike?
We heard names that. Well, I know for a fact they interviewed a couple of different candidates, and
Stephen
they
Caldwell.
gave them a couple
they-
of different.
Yeah, Stephen
Couple of different
Caldwell.
looks.
They threw a DM at Vieira, right? Maybe Laurent Blanc had a couple interviews, but I mean, again,
Steve Cherundolo, that's another one.
Okay,
Steve
there you
Cherundolo,
go. Yeah. I
Um,
mean,
There's
Ben
also
Olsen, right?
I'm
Like
sure
that's
I'm sure Jason Bent was given a look as well.
I
sure.
hope so.
Jason
Anyway.
Ben Olsen,
and also like there are
probably-
like this isn't just Chris Armas. He's the only guy we can get. Let's go. Like
no. But
giving him an
I'm not-
excuse.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying this was a difficult hire, and I do think that was part of it was the fact that they expected this coach to be back, so it wasn't fully in their plans again for the off season. We know, they are plan ahead type of people. Secondly, you're filling the shoes of one of the better coaches in recent MLS history, which is never ever going to be easy as well.
Exactly.
They have no excuses for this next hire, though. I think they should take as long as they can to really, really make sure the replacement is right. Like, obviously, by next season, they need to have someone in place who's new, but it's not like they have to make a desperation hire right now. But this is the one that really shows you, I think, what the management style of Curtis and Manning, because they absolutely can't get this one wrong. It has to be the right hire, and it has to be a hire that moves this club forward. So I really think this is a critical one, and this will show their true colors.
I agree with everything that you said there, Mitch. Like, obviously, it was a very difficult hire. They weren't expecting Greg Vanney to leave in the fashion that he left. That being said, like, it's the off season. They had 3 months to take their time, make the hire. How much more? Like, how long do you want them to take to make this hire to ensure they get it right? Right.
Again, no in-person interviews.
I think that's
right. No in-person interviews unless they do 14 days quarantine on either side. Right. I mean, all of the COVID things, right? Like, I don't see any logical, results aside. Ali sticking his neck out. That's what I want. I mean, he has an existing relationship with this guy. It didn't work out. And there's a very good argument to be made that it was never going to work out. Michael Bradley just made it. But I don't fault Ali Curtis one bit for going for what he knows in the face of all of that unknown, right?
So I'm not yet.
Risk.
That absolutely not saying that what Ali Curtis did was wrong per se. But in hindsight, now that we're looking back on it, like, he got the decision wrong. It was a swing and a miss by Ali Curtis. There were other candidates that were viable for this position, and clearly the decision that they made was not the right decision, right? And I don't think we should sugarcoat it by saying, like, this was a tough hire to make, and maybe there's reasons why they didn't get this hire right. To be honest, I think we should call a spade and just be like, they messed up here.
I mean, that's a fair point, but I'm going to be the guy that continuously champions, in this case, the devil, right? And they took a flyer. I mean, they took a risk. A big club takes a risk. They took a risk. It didn't work out. They corrected. It
was a risk that was like the TFC fan base got on that risk from the get go. Like, as soon as Armas was hired, they were like, no. And when I first heard Armas' name, I was like, no.
Because they wanted Marino or Pep. I mean, like, each one of those shouts, we need to get the proper.
To be fair, we understand why TFC fans were kind of hoping for a big name, because that's what the club came out and said that they wanted. They said, we're a big club. We need to go get a guy who's in line with that, who understands that. To me, that just, if you date back from the beginning, like, yes, I believe Chris Armas deserved a fair chance once he got the job, but obviously, clearly, he wasn't the right guy for this position now.
Yeah, Ivan, I don't think we're debating. I think that's an interesting question. Do you think Curtis owned it, or do you think he, regardless of whether he physically or said he owned it, he's in the hot seat now. I mean,
he verbatim said, like, a lot of he bears a lot of the blame, right? Like, he literally said that word for word. So I mean, how much more can you own that?
Exactly. You can't really. So yeah, he owned it. What was the other one? Who would you? What are names you'd like to see?
I mean, I made this shout out on Twitter, and I'm not saying he should be the next TFC head coach permanently, but this is a team that's going to be looking for an interim manager by July 17th. And I believe Stephen Caldwell would be a good fit for interim manager for this team. This is a guy who Canadian players absolutely love. Like, he is the assistant coach for the Canadian men's national team. I believe he's in charge of like getting that defense together. I believe that's what his role is.
It is.
And I believe he would actually be he's a club captain. He's more in tune with this club than anybody else out there. Like, he watches every match. He was close.
Well, he has to.
He was close in the winter for getting this position. Josh Cloak reporting that he actually interviewed twice for the role, but the club felt at the time like he didn't have the necessary experience. And for me, at this point, unless Javier Perez goes out there on Wednesday and does an absolutely fantastic job, what do you have to lose by giving someone like Stephen Caldwell a shot here at interim?
He has a lot to lose. I mean, he would have to quit 10 of his 4,000 jobs, and he would not get them back.
He would get that. He would want that.
You do it in a second for
He'd
sure.
want that interim tag, too.
Okay,
he would accept the interim tag too, right?
Okay.
And Colin, yes, he's absolutely cool. He does have his badges. He's, like I said, the assistant coach for the Canadian men's national team. And this could be the next step up as taking on that interim tag.
I mean, if we're gonna raid the Can men's national team, I want Mauro Bello, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout either. But the other name I'd look to in the interim would be Toronto FC2 head coach Mikey Munoz, who I think has done a really solid job with TFC2. And I think in terms of the familiarity with some of those young guys and coming in as an interim, at least, I certainly wouldn't yet advocate for him becoming the head coach, but I do think he'd be a good interim coach.
I got an idea. Hear me out, Zizou.
He's available.
yeah. Just drop a bag of money at Zinedine Zidane's house.
But Mikey, let's hear a little bit about Javier Perez. You guys would have talked to him during that press conference. Of course, he's going to at least be the head coach on the bench for the game against New England on Wednesday. I mean, a pretty difficult start for him. He's going up against the best team in the Eastern Conference, so he's getting thrown to the Wolves right away. But at least a decent resume. He spent time with New York City FC as an assistant. Spent time with the U.S. Youth national team, started out with Real Madrid's academy, speaking of the Zizou connection there. But what did you learn from him, and what potentially we might be seeing different from Toronto FC tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a good shout. Javier Perez, I guess my first impressions of him is this is a guy who at least comes off as someone who really understands the game and someone who really studies the game. I think he's kind of a bit of a polar opposite of Chris Armas in the sense that when Chris Armas spoke to media, he really spoke about some of the intangibles. He spoke about like high intensity, bringing a lot of energy to the side. Like, he wanted to really motivate as a coach, inject something within the side that he believed maybe they could play already, but he wanted to take them to the next level. Javier Perez, to me, comes off as a little bit more of a tactician. One thing I really liked what he mentioned was that he loves that he spends time studying oppositions. He spends a lot of time doing that, and you guys mentioned the website that he has where he breaks everything down tactically.
Yeah, all tactics. There's not one left unturned. He
spends time studying oppositions, and he spends times figuring out ways to exploit that. And that's something that is kind of a different, a different sort of mentality than what Chris Armas was offering. Because Chris Armas was, every time he spoke, he spoke in sort of as a motivator as opposed to a tactician. And I think, I don't want to make the comparison to Vanny, but Vanny was like the opposite. Vanny was more of a tactician than a motivator. And someone on TFC told me this about Armas, is that he's the type of guy that like you can talk to about anything. He's more of your best friend. But Greg just knew the game. It wasn't really about the relationships that Greg had with his players. It was more so about the understanding of the game that Greg possessed. And I think that's what sort of Javier Perez kind of brings to this side. So I'm interested to see what sort of what type of team this TFC team looks like. Perez is saying that this is a team that needed a change, needed a shakeup. So I'm interested.
Yep. You mentioned relationships with players, which I think brings us to another thing that is coming out of all of this, which is Josie Altador. I think multiple times on this show we've mentioned that we don't think he'll ever suit up for Toronto FC again, but that does seem like it might be changing a little bit. Toronto FC are meeting with his representatives this week to talk about his situation and whether or not he will be willing to return to the club. The good news that they mentioned as well is after tonight or after tomorrow's game, they have until the 17th, I believe. That is their next game. So they have a bit of a Gold Cup break here, which is an opportunity for them to, work through this situation. Learning what we have so far, do we think we might actually see Josie Altador back, and are the winds kind of changing a little bit in terms of that situation?
So based off what Michael Bradley was saying today, and this was really interesting. This actually caught me a little bit off guard. Essentially what he was saying is he was asked about Josie Altador, and he was like, I can't really give you an answer on that because he doesn't know. You guys got me still?
Yep. Yeesh, a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, like Michael Bradley was asked about Josie Altador, and he said he couldn't really give us an answer yet because, like us, he's been kept in the dark about the whole situation. Yes, he's good friends with Josie Altador, but to be honest, this is what he was saying. To be honest, Josie Altador hasn't been with the team, so he actually does. So he actually doesn't know what's going on right now with Josie Altador. And, he reiterated what he told me a couple weeks ago, and that was just like, Josie Altador's a legend. He hopes that the best could happen for Josie and his family, as well as the best could happen for the club, and there's a resolution there. So, I mean, based on what Michael Bradley's saying, like, there's still question marks. Again, Javier Perez was asked about it, pressed about it, and he just said he's focused on Wednesday, and after Wednesday, management will make a decision. But I'm getting the sense here, and I've spoken to a couple people about this, and I'm getting the sense here that Josie Altador and TFC are heading towards a reunion. Ali Curtis, in his press conference, they left the door open, really, for a Josie reunion. Ali Curtis, mentioning stay tuned there. He said he had some good conversations with Josie and his representation earlier this week. And by all accounts, from my understanding, is that this is heading towards a reunion. Wow. And there's a real chance here that Josie Altador has not played his last game for Toronto FC. So stay tuned for that, as Ali Curtis says.
Wow. What a season, boys. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the season, I think this gets us to our potentially critical question of the show, which is the season. Can it be saved? I mean, there's 11 matches Toronto FC have played so far. They're 11 points out of the playoffs right now in an increasingly competitive Eastern Conference. I think a surprisingly competitive Eastern Conference with what some of the bubble clubs have shown this year. I mean, the stats aren't good. Let's be honest. Most goals against in the Eastern Conference, most expected goals against. Another good stat from Martin this week, our good buddy Martin Bailey. Toronto FC conceded.
Good stat.
Yeah, I mean it is a good stat.
It's a stat.
It's not a nice stat.
No, exactly.
Toronto FC's allowed 27 goals so far this season. They only allowed 26 all of last year. So therein lies the main problem of the season so far. Do we think they can turn it around? And do we think, again, there's not much statistical indication, but is there a chance that they can turn things around and get back into that playoff push?
Night.
I mean, there's a chance. 23 games left, 69 points. They're playing against a lot of Eastern Conference teams. Right now, they sit 11 points out. Like, as Michael Bradley said, that if this team gets back to playing the way that it can, the way that it has in the past,
Mhm.
We see them roll off 4, 5, 6 straight victories or even results, get points, pick up points in them. They're right back in the mix. Like, this isn't last season where it's a shortened season. This is a long 34-game MLS season. They're only 11 games in. They're not even 33%, a third of the way into the season. So is this season salvageable? Yes, it absolutely is. Like, there's no reason why they technically, can't go on a run here. It's just, it comes down to, at the end of the day, to results and picking up points. And would I bet that TFC would turn things around in a heartbeat? That's tough. Like, I mean, based on the way they're playing this season, no. If it was just Chris Armas, that was sort of the issue, or if this team gets a spark out of their new coach, who's to say that this team cannot go on there and make a run? I've been on the record and I'm saying, and I still believe this. I actually still believe this. TFC may have the best roster in MLS on paper. If all of their players are healthy, all of their guys are in the side. Wednesday's matchup should be the first time we see both Soteldo and Pozuelo start a game for Toronto FC. How much of a difference is that going to make? Like, Pozuelo has only started, I believe, 1 game this season.
My God.
Is that not nuts? That's the MVP.
Yeah.
That's the guy who your whole team revolves around. We saw how important he is to this team. This is a side that went down, 3-1 before Pozuelo came on, 4-1 before Pozuelo came on.
Mm-hmm.
So now that he's going to be starting in the game, how much of a difference can he make? Can Pozuelo stay healthy? Can Soteldo stay healthy? You get both those guys back. Iowakinola looks like he's back in form. If they can figure out what the heck is going on defensively, then yeah, I believe the season's salvageable. This is a team that went 16-5-5 last season. 16 wins.
Yeah.
It's not out of the question.
It's not out of the question, but I do think that thinking about it, and I don't know, I'm not an athlete. Surprise, surprise. But I mean, what do you do in the locker room, right? Do you say baby steps, like let's fix our leaky defense, and let the chips fall where they may, or are you always with your foot on the accelerator? Are you always that mindless self-belief, we're going to win MLS Cup this year? I mean, I think B is the answer always. But objectively,
I think it's A. Like, I think you got to take this, a game at a time, 2 games at a time, 3 games
100%.
at a time, right? Like, at the end of the
so
day,
no mention of playoffs whatsoever. Just, we are here on, New England is our target. Let's get the result. And if we don't get the result, let's at least not look like Timbits out there, and call that a win, and then onward and upward sort of thing.
Yeah, have a foundation to build off. Yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
I think that's the exact mentality they have to take in the next little bit, because, if you start to look long term, I mean, you're going to have to look in the back as well and see how, the long term does not look great right now. So you focus on, what can we do over the next couple of days? Let's pick up a result going into a nice long break for us. We'll have this long break to try and figure some stuff out and see how we can come out the other side when we play Orlando for the 117th time this season on the 17th. And yeah, I think they go from there. But I do think with the new coach, and I actually agree with Mike. I think if they don't have the best roster in MLS, they've got one of the best rosters. We're going to find out whether or not they have a good team over the next little bit. And I do think there is a difference in terms of, the composition of egos, the makeup of how different players complement each other. And again, that comes back to Ali Curtis, because, it's not about building a good roster. It's about building a good team that a coach, any coach can come in and do something with. And Jeff.
What happens to the young guns now? What happens to the Prisos? What happens to the Leon 4, who, oh my God, he hated my questions so much. What happens to those guys, right? They saw some success under Armas, and now they have to fight for their place in a sort of ephemeral wonderland where maybe we're not playing the same kind of aggressive football. I mean, maybe they got to be thinking, are we going back to the Vanny years where, the ceiling is maybe a couple games at TFC2 and nothing else? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. It's a fair question, and I think that's something the new coach, it's a challenge that they're going to have to deal with. We're talking about some of the young guns Mitch,
Yeah,
and
like the
essentially
Prizos. Yeah.
what's going to happen with them now. And the reality is, Jeff, like we don't have the answers to that.
No,
Like,
exactly.
the next coach, hopefully they have the answers to that, and I'm sure their stance on them hasn't changed from what it was at the beginning of the season. Is that these guys are very important players to this team. They're very important to the future of this club.
Okay.
They're very important to the business side of this club. If you want to talk about recruiting players,
Yeah.
you want to talk about making some moolah, some money. Like these are the ways that you do it, right? Is investing in your academy and try and transition them to the first team. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. So, one of the knocks with TFC this season, and I think Bill Manning, Ali Curtis, they kind of admitted this in the press conference, is that the roster that's currently in place was not in tune with playing Chris Armas' style of play. And we saw that so many times. Like Omar Gonzalez playing a high line. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, come on. So that was just no. Michael Bradley trying to be the guy who just presses up and down the field.
This is my favorite because to do that, you need another Michael Bradley to cover for your Michael Bradley that's playing up and down the field, right? So,
It's true. You have your strikers are Ayo Akinola, Josie Altador, even Pozuelo. Those guys are not guys who are built for pressing. The only one that's like really, really built for pressing on this team, like maybe two players.
Patrick Mullins.
Not even Patrick Mullins presses no matter what, but Jacob Schaffelberg, because he just he's just shot out of a cannon every time he takes the pitch. Maybe Richie Larea as well, because Richie is we know how aggressive that he likes to play, and he has the legs to sort of make up for that. Maybe throw Ralph Priso into that mix. Maybe Chris Mavinga, but everyone else, they're ball players. This is a team that really strived off keeping possession and taking the time to break oppositions down. Now, ideally, I think last season we saw the team get a little bit pragmatic, a little bit too predictable. Their decision making wasn't as sharp towards the end of the season. So ideally, you have that combination of both, where you can play vertical, but at the same time, you're also confident enough to keep the ball and stay in possession and then reset if things don't go your way. So there's that. But if that's not the solution, then the reality is this is a roster that needs to be overturned. Because if Omar Gonzalez can no longer play that style of play, he can no longer play a high pressing style of play. Ali Curtis is saying that he has a vision based on what he wants this club to play. If your players on the pitch are not being able to play that vision, then you're going to have to overturn the roster. And then, in my opinion, that should be a youth movement coming through the ranks, because this is a team that's honestly flooded with a lot of youth talent. There's a team that hasn't really given their youth talent the fairest of opportunities here. And, there's an opportunity now, if things go wrong, to just go youth and with nothing to lose.
We have nothing to lose. That's why I'm saying I want to see Rocco out there. I want to see Dunn out there. I want to see Noble back out there. Now is the time, man. Like, it can't be better. It can't get worse. It can't get worse than 7-1 to DC United.
I don't think now's the time. But
then when is it? When is it? When did these guys?
After we give these guys a run with a new coach.
Okay.
Right? Because this is still a team that finished second in the MLS last season, was first with 4 games left to play. This is still a roster that is technically in win now mode. Michael Bradley's 33 years old. Omar Gonzalez upwards of 30 years old. Chris Mavinga is approaching 30 years old. Pozuelo's 30 years old. You want to throw Josie in the mix. Josie's 31. Ozo's getting up there in age. This is a team that wants to win now.
Did we watch the same game against DC? That's
okay,
a team that wants to
lose
a lot.
Are we all agreeing that this TFC team isn't that DC United game? Like, this is a team that's much better than that.
I don't know anymore, man.
But you're not willing to give them another shot.
No, I absolutely am. But like this this is a team that's in win now mode. I mean, that sounds wonderful, but look at what did you see?
It's built like that too. But do you know what I mean in terms of age of players and in terms
of exactly on paper.
That's where you're investing your money. You're investing your money into players who are supposed to help you win now.
Okay, absolutely. But considering, a lot is up in the air over the next couple of games, and if we're still looking like the team that we were, regardless of the new coach bump, or anything, then I'm going to be a very strong proponent for trying everything. I mean, why not? Why the hell not? Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, as Graham's
give
saying,
them
like
competitive minutes. Yeah.
you kind of need to maximize the time that's left on like the contracts that you have. But yeah, there comes a certain point where you say, okay, this season's a lost season. Now we have nothing to lose. Play the kids. That
Play the
there
kids,
100% gets to that point, but we're not at
Mhm.
that point yet. Like I said,
No.
we're not even the third into the season. There's still a chance here that TFC goes on a run and salvages the season.
And certainly helping that fact, of course, will be the news that you've been reporting for about a month now, but it's slowly looks like it's becoming
Broke it on this
official now.
show.
Yeah, there you go.
My God, Mitch, you are god tier segues today. This is crazy. Go ahead.
This is what I do now.
Yeah, I know.
The fact that fully vaccinated members of Toronto FC, sorry Nick, will be returning to
Took my joke.
BMO. Pardon?
took my
I did
joke.
actually.
Do we
straight
know?
up
Do
take
we
that joke.
actually know for sure that he's still staunchly?
No, we don't
Okay.
we don't know
don't,
for
yeah.
sure. But
So
I mean,
that might
he
be an
took a
unfair.
really strong stance on it. That would take
dude. Yeah,
that would that'd be surprising if he took a turn. And honestly, that would bring up a lot more moral issues.
Mike Josie's coming back, and we just fired a coach that has never set foot in BMO. It's all wacky now, dude. Like maybe
fair,
he's
yeah.
manufacturing vaccines now. Like he read one article and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to get behind this stuff."
But I mean, to be fair, Mike steals questions every week, so I can steal one or two of his jokes. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
After Wednesday's game, they'll actually be returning to BMO training ground where they're able to start training again. Which again, even that little bit has to be a massive boost to be able to see the families and be able to be in more familiar climate. So that's going to be a nice little morale boost for Toronto FC. But even bigger is that the club remains optimistic that their next home game, which is July 17th against Orlando City for the 12th millionth time, will be played not again at Exploria, where they've had the awkward behind closed doors friendly type feels, but instead might actually be played at BMO Field. Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly exciting, and I think something that we're all super hopeful will happen. And I think at this point it seems to make sense.
Yeah, it's something that the club is preparing for. What I will say is that it's not official yet.
Yeah, I think that bluster in the press conference was an attempt to sort of will it into existence, if we're being honest. But
no, for sure, definitely some PR behind that.
Yeah.
It's not like they haven't gotten the complete green light yet. That being said, it is looking that way. From all I've heard, is it actually is looking that way that TFC will get the green light for that match. But you never know. It's like they're working with stuff that's beyond their control. Right, if it's up to TFC, they would have been there yesterday. They would have been there last month. They would have been there at the beginning of the season. But it's at the end of the day, it's not up to them. So
I mean, they're running out of stadiums to rent, right? Like they've already burnt they're like, we're never going back to Exploria ever. And Hartford is like, we don't want you. You hate us. So they really are running out of places in the U.S. to play in.
What I'll add on that is that if TFC do return home to BMO Field, they're also planning to play in front of fans at obviously a limited capacity. I think 25, 35%. I think regulations now just allow for 25, so maybe that's what they're preparing for. But it's the closest that we've ever been to returning back home in front of fans there at BMO Field. Like last time I was at BMO Field, I mean, I've taken a couple walks there and just like checked out like outside the stadium just for, I don't know, nostalgia's sake. But the last time I was there, it was without any fans. It was in September.
No, they were fans. They just were at the food building making
lots. I think one of the games. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, you
games,
didn't.
Right?
Yeah, you were there for all three. You lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky
so
guy.
there were 3 games there, and let me tell you guys, like, it was great to be back at BMO. But it wasn't the same without fans.
Because I wasn't there.
It's simply exactly. You wouldn't have Jeff there screaming at the top of his lungs, tarps off, maybe. Like I don't know what Jeff does during games, man. But yeah, it's really exciting to hear about that prospect. We haven't been back to BMO with fans. BMO hasn't felt the same since March 7th, 2020, and that was obviously one of the most. Like, let me tell you, the season was getting going. We had an exciting young prospect in Achara coming up. TFC was looking like a really good team. They were beating New York City FC. That was a magical night.
Nobody knew what the hell COVID was. It was such a wonderful time.
That night, like there was so much momentum building from that night, and just how special that season could have been, having being played at home in front of those fans that were, everyone was starting to get into it. I had people messaging me about Achara that did not even watch TFC because there was a buzz going around the city that night, and I hope that we can get back to that as soon as possible, and hopefully that is July 17th. If you have Josie Altador returning for Toronto FC on that game too, imagine the scenes. Imagine the scenes there on the lakeshore by BMO Field. Like I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And hopefully, TFC get the news that they're hoping for. They're really optimistic about it. But let's wait and see, and let's hold off until we get like an official announcement that they're returning. But as I said, all signs are kind of pointing in that direction.
That's
fantastic. And they do say 35% capacity, but we all saw the Bell Center last night, right? Like, there's no way that was 3,500 people. They're sneaking people in, so maybe we can get a bigger crowd than that.
Damn right.
Outside the Bell Center, dude, just
it gives you goosebumps.
I don't know if goosebumps is the right word. I kind of felt like
nightmares. I mean, for you,
nightmares. Yeah, like honestly, like I feel like I hope we can get back to a place where one day we're comfortable being in that mob, that crowd. Me personally, I don't know if I'm there yet, where I can just go, get back in the middle of that mob crowd.
I thought it would take me longer, honestly, but a couple beers. And I just want to get everybody on a patio.
You just want to be tarps off with his friends.
On that note, it's a good show. Let's get, guys, if you're not vaccinated yet, get double vaccinated. I'm getting my second shot tomorrow, actually. My second dose tomorrow. So
last Wednesday.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So getting a little bit closer. I see a lot of people asking about Nick DeLeon still. I will add, what I've heard is that if you're not double vaccinated, I don't know if you're going to be able to play in away games.
I think he's got to stay in Exploria forever. But
he can come back.
Past to Epcot Center. So
not using Nick DeLeon as an example, let's just say people who aren't vaccinated. You can come back. You can come back to Ontario, but you won't be able to travel for away games. Is what I've heard, and you won't be able to participate in those away games. So, something to keep an eye on. Again, Nick DeLeon's also dealing with an injury right now, so that's why he hasn't played, I think, since May 29th, as Corey Brady saying there in the bat.
Yeah. He's been injured. He's got a knock, so.
Yeah, but that's the narrative nowadays, guys. That's what we have to talk about. Are players vaccinated? Are they not vaccinated? Just the times we're living in, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be fun. I have some faith in this new guy. I like the cut of his jib. I'm always.
Jib? What does that mean?
I don't know. It's an old saying. If anybody wants to,
it is a thing. I can confirm it is a thing.
I'm genuinely just asking what it means.
Yeah. I mean, the Real background is great. The fact that he listed every formation that's ever existed on his website is pretty fantastic. He feels he's just the kind of soccer nerd that I think we should have as a replacement for the outgoing gaffer. I mean, maybe he's going to overthink everything. Certainly, that's his purview because I don't think he expected to get the keys to the car. But if he's if someone's going to overthink something, I'd certainly like them to have the prerequisite of they at least know the background of what they're going to overthink. So. Let's go. I mean, new coach bump as well, right? Any way you slice it, there's going to be a bit of positivity going in. I mean, I I had a question. That 7-1 loss, right? I mean, people are saying it. I'm not inclined to believe it, but was that the team playing to get a coaching change?
I don't think anyone plays to get a coaching change. Like, I don't think as a competitor
Were they
out
showing
there,
their displeasure? I mean, like
I-
Mavinga doesn't make tackles that week unless he's pissed off about something, or he's
maybe
playing
it's frustration boiling over. Maybe like, I mean, when you're losing 7-1, like
Mhm.
it's tough to stay in the match when you're getting beat
No,
like that, when you're getting scored like
I
that.
agree. I
A
agree.
word going around, demoralizing, absolutely demoralizing, being beat like that. I don't necessarily think any of the players went out there did it on purpose.
Right.
But I
Like,
do
I'm sure they
believe,
didn't get in the huddle and go, guys, let's get Armas fired. Let's do it.
but I do believe that
Armas
this was
out on 10 or Armas out on 3. Break.
yeah.
I do believe this was a team that Chris Armas has lost the dressing room for a while.
Okay.
I've spoken to quite a few players this year specifically, and they, let's just put it that they weren't 100% behind the ideas Chris Armas was putting out there. So I know, like, there's already question marks about the coach itself. And then, as I mentioned, like off the jump, like you can tell this was a team that was not willing to run through a wall for Chris Armas. As good of as a person he is, and I hate saying, like, I hate bashing that, because like he is genuinely, from all accounts, even the players, they spoke in rave reviews about the type of person Chris Armas is. He's a genuinely good person. But this wasn't a team that was willing to run through a wall for Chris Armas.
It's so
You
funny
had
how
one or
often
two
that
players,
gets,
but yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny how often that gets brought up, running through a wall or giving 100%. It's amazing how important that is. It really is. It's something that I'm noticing that the deeper I get into this, just how important that is, right? Like, you can, in my world, you can definitely finish an edit if you're only willing to give 60%. And sometimes you have to, because if you get too attached to the material, you're just as screwed, right? But it's just interesting. It really does seem to be an all or nothing proposition here, right? Either you're willing to jump off a cliff for the system, or you lose 7-1. I mean,
yeah, I think it's such an important part, especially over the course of a long season of being a coach, is being able to motivate players, being able to manage and I guess talk through conflicts, ego situations. Like, there's so much that comes up over the course of a season, and being able to make every player on your roster. And this was a big thing that, again, the predecessor Greg Vanney was always good at, and people mentioned this, like making every player on your roster feel like they were special, they knew their
except
role.
Liam Fraser.
Except Liam Fraser. Yeah. I mean, there's always
yeah.
going to be exceptions to every rule for every team. It just happens, right? Like everyone at the end of the day wants to be in that starting 11, so you're never going to have it perfect. But I do think,
very good point.
I do think that is, or they shouldn't be on your team if they don't want to be in the starting 11.
Also a good point.
But I do think that is an incredibly critical part of coaching, and obviously, it's at some point between the Lyon games and the 7-1, Chris Armas greatly lost the dressing room and the players' motivation. Again, I don't think. Certainly they went out there with the mentality to lose, but I do think it was obviously an indication of how poorly things had gone for Toronto FC and how poorly the players' mentality was from top
it wasn't
to
just
bottom.
1, 2, 3 players. It was literally everyone on the pitch looking lost and looking demotivated. What are you guys expecting? I've seen a couple people in the chat ask this, so let me get this question out there. What are you guys expecting tomorrow against New England? This is the Eastern Conference leaders. What are your expectations heading into this match?
Head or heart?
I mean, I'm just hoping. I'm hoping we see a tighter system out of them and at least a strong defensive performance. I think if say they lose 1-2-0 or 2-1 or something like that, but they actually do look much better defensively and are able to play with more shape and more sense. Like, that's a solid result for this team that I think they can build on going into that break. I think that's the biggest thing, is how they look versus, again, we're talking so much about the importance of results, but I do think that at minimum they need to come out here and give a good account of themselves, because otherwise, it's going to be a long 2 weeks before we get back to action.
Yeah, I need to see unity. I need to see the stuff that I wasn't seeing, and it's difficult. It's difficult because now I'm reminded how often the Vanny system was possession, patience, let one of your, top line, top end talent do something magical, right? Which is almost the opposite of the team unity that I'm looking for now, right? So if we revert back to a Vanny based system, I'm not going to see that unity I want, right? And if I'm going to see the feckless back passes that drove me crazy last season. So I don't know. I don't know. As long as they don't capitulate and roll over and get trounced, 5-1 or 7-1 again, which I think is a distinct possibility, I'll be happy.
So progress, essentially.
Progress, essentially. Just to circle back to one more thing I wanted to raise, which is another thing that I realized is unbelievably important. Media, comfort with the media. I know Armas was behind the 8 ball with the Zoom disconnect, and the fact that he was following a guy in the Greg Father that was very, very good at dealing with the media. But oh my God, did Chris not make things easy for himself with the way he answered questions, the way he dodged topics, the way that he tried to be vague enough that he was giving non-answers, right? There are ways to be vague, but still have people leave the room feeling like they got something out of it, right? It's an art. And I didn't realize how important it was until we had to deal with this admittedly awful Armas situation where there was none of that face-to-face personal contact, and so it just snowballed into a monstrosity. But oh my God, how important is that? I always knew it, but I don't think I realized just how much. Yeah.
Well, let's finish up by talking about a coach who is actually a great talker, and that's John Herdman. That's what he's kind of the opposite example of the very tactical coach. I mean, look, I do think John Herdman's better tactically than people give him credit for, but his bread and butter is his ability to motivate and make this Canada team believe, and I think we're seeing that again on a Gold Cup roster that is very, very good. I mean, you've convinced Alphonso Davies to somehow forego preseason with Bayern Munich and come in again. Looking long term, there's some questions as to whether that's the best move for his career with a new coach coming in for Bayern, but it shows the level of buy-in that John Herdman's been able to get with this roster. And I mean, again, he's been able to win another recruitment battle, and you've got Ayo Akinola coming in, who I think is a big boost for this Canada team. And
who Jeff, I owe an apology to.
A couple, yeah. I'll give you the floor, Jeff. Before
no, I mean, I'm sorry, Ayo. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Welcome to the Canadian men's national team. If you want to punch me in the arm if we ever meet in person, I'll give
after he gets his vaccine.
I'll get you one freebie. No, I've already had my 2, so there's no dead arm. He would have to create the dead arm. What was I going to say? Do you think Fonzie? I mean, obviously, it's a good thing that he's on our roster, but do you think it might end up biting us when World Cup qualification comes around?
No, I think they're all there for World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, unilaterally a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a risk, obviously. Like, if you're going to play someone, there's a risk of them getting injured, if that's what you're referring to.
It is, but it's also burnout, maybe. Just like, too many games, right?
Yeah. And I think that's part of why another Canadian, top player is probably not there for this Gold Cup. But I think Alphonso Davies is at that age where he just wants to play soccer, and I think this is good for. I think that they got the roster bang on for this because it's most of what the 11 will probably be for those World Cup qualifiers starting in September. So they're going to get more time to gel together. I think it's probably most of the back line, which is the most incredible or the most important part of this is that the back line comes together. But I like it because it's most of that group, and then you've got some new guys you're taking a look at between Io, Tyler Pasher, who's been amazing for Houston.
Yeah, you're so
Former
high on
TFC
him,
Academy
Yeah.
product, by the way.
Yeah,
Former
yeah.
TFC
Worth
Academy
mentioning
product.
that. Yeah, there's
Who
your
isn't?
Cam Winger right there.
Yeah, like who isn't a former
Yeah.
TFC Academy product? But
hmm
anyway,
Yeah. And then Harrison Patton as well, who's coming over from the SPL, had a great year and is an exciting young midfielder there. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good Canada group. And again, impressive that Herdman is able to get all of these players to commit to a tournament like this. Again, there's a clear vision for Canada right now.
The one
And
player
that
I'm
vision,
really excited to see is Theo Corbenu,
hmm
because man, from all accounts, like I've heard, like he has Ralph Priso told me that he has the highest ceiling. Besides, maybe no, him and Jaquil have the highest ceilings of players he's ever seen.
wow.
Like this, he said, like from the age of like 14, 15, like he knew that Corbenu was going to go over to Europe and not just get a gig, but he was going to be a starter. Like this
Nice.
kid is that good, and he's shown more than flashes of it. This season so far with Wolves and Wolves Academy.
Yeah.
When he
With
plays
his
for
Instagram
Canada,
Live was absolutely fabulous.
That was awesome.
yeah. When he
Yeah.
plays for Canada, like, so the thing about him is like he's a pure attacker. Like he's a winger, right? He grew up as a winger. He understands how to break down a fullback like a winger. The thing about Alphonso Davies, and we're all blown away by his ability to go forward. Fonzie's technically a fullback, so we've never seen a player as talented that's a pure winger come up through the ranks for Canada. And
Junior Hoylett?
I was waiting for that.
Excuse me.
even Junior Hoylett, like you can call him like a number 10 or a striker. Like a winger's different in terms of like their ability to take players on 1v1, their ability to kind of cut inside or go down the line with their pace. And, he has this flair about him too that's like top-notch baller. And I really do believe like the sky is the limit for that kid. Like I think we're just scratching the surface with just how good he is, and I think he's going to be critical for this team, in a couple of years. So hopefully he gets some games under his belt at the Gold Cup, and I want to see how he does, because he's one I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah,
Nice.
Canada will have a good opportunity to kind of rotate the squad. I mean, it starts on Sunday against Martinique. You're going to have a game against either Haiti or Bermuda, who obviously Canada have both beaten in recent past, and then of course the big one against the United States that everyone has circled on their calendar. That's to finish off the group stage. So you have a couple of opponents there that are solid enough, but you can probably rotate your squad a bit. So it'll be cool to see what Canada brings into the Martinique and Haiti Bermuda games.
One last question before we wrap up. I know we're running long, but one last
Who
question.
cares? I love talking to you.
Where does Io Akinola fit in with this Canadian men's national team?
I think he slots right into the Jay Dave role.
Well, like, let's say
Potentially.
hypothetically Jay Dave's is healthy.
Mhm.
Oh! Post Gold Cup when they're both competing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a starter.
And did he
No.
make the right decision?
I think he made the right decision.
Without your
I think-
heart, or with your head, or with your heart?
With my head, I think I'm not afraid of this U.S. roster at the Gold Cup. I mean, let's circle back.
No,
to that.
not even.
I think
They're
there's
like
a lot
MLS
of holes.
build roster. Yeah.
There's a lot of holes in that roster. I'm not afraid of them at all. I think, how can you? I mean, you look at his you look at his personal story, right? And then you look at the state of the Canadian men's national team, and you look at the guy the gaffer that we have, Herdman, who could sell you beachfront property in Idaho if he wanted to, right? I mean, the guy is pure salesman, and he's not selling snake oil. He's selling a dream that seems to be being realized in real time, right? How would you not want to be part of this? Seriously. How would you not want to be part of that?
That's more with your heart. I'm talking from a football perspective. Like, time? Can he make the most impact here for Canada, or could he make the most impact for the United States?
Was he a starter, a guaranteed starter on either squad, though? I don't think so.
But if you look at the depth at both sides, it's quite clear that Canada has a lot more depth up front than
I don't know if
the United
Canada
States.
has. Again, I've kind of said this before. I don't know if Canada has more depth. I think it has more quality of depth. Certainly,
yes,
obviously David and and Laren are better than probably anyone the U.S. has. After that, I do think the U.S. has more players on Io's current level, so it'd be tricky just because there's
Is
just
Io
more.
ahead of Lucas Cavallini?
It's close.
Is it?
I'd say yes.
It's
I'd say he will
it's a
be
lot
soon.
closer than we'd like to.
I would say Lucas
Lucas.
Cavallini, based on the way that he's been playing for Canada.
Mhm.
How do you not give him the
Probably,
leg
yeah.
up there? He
That's
scored
fair,
at
yeah.
will for this team.
Yeah.
And then you're going to take him
Yeah.
out of the roster. He's a designated
Mhm.
player in Major League Soccer. Iowa Akinola
Yeah.
is not a designated player in Major League Soccer.
Mhm.
I don't think he warrants a DP tag yet. Even
Yeah.
how can we say he's an outright better player than Lucas Cavallini?
Mhm.
Like
No,
What
but he's
it
in the
comes-
dialogue.
What it comes
He's-
down to for me, maybe, is you just have the potential to have more special moments with Canada, if that makes sense. Like, you've got your first ever home World Cup with Canada potentially coming in 2026, where you'll be at a great age. You'll be right in your prime. That's something that you can obviously target your career towards and really work towards. It's it's kind of like a carrot that you can work towards. You've got obviously the potential to qualify for World Cup for the first time since 1986. You've got this program that has a bunch of new, like a new shine feel to it that I think maybe the U.S. doesn't quite yet. So I just think there's an opportunity for him to have really historic and special moments with Canada that maybe wouldn't exist with the U.S. program at the moment.
Yeah, and like I said,
Fair
I
shot.
understand his decision. He grew up here. His family's here. Like he
Mhm.
moved here at the age of 1. We
So
all
he-
know Akinola's backstory, and like I said, as people are saying in the chat, like this guy is Canadian. Like
Yeah.
that's what
And
he identifies with.
And
But-
there is a difference, right? The Canadian swagger and the American swagger are quite different from each other, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. If that's what it comes
just-
down to, fair play. I'm just thinking strictly from like a football perspective.
mm,
I personally think Io Akinola might have had a better shot with the U.S. in terms of playing and being a real impact player on that team than he does with Canada.
but who wants to line up in a front two with Josh Sargent? No one, not even Josh Sargent. So I mean, and not like that's
Love
got
it.
It's like well, Io, we'll start you, but you're starting next to Josh Sargent. And he's like, nah, I think I'm going to play for Canada. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Keep Josh Sargent.
I love it. I love it. Hopefully, hopefully we can do big things against them in the Gold Cup and back up some of these words. But guys, I'm sure we could go on for another few hours, but we should probably wrap it up there.
Well, I mean, wrapping it up means our next episode is our 1 year anniversary, guys. So
that is true. Yeah, look
just
forward to that.
We're
working on a couple of things for that show, so hopefully we can get those in place. Thanks as always, of course, to our Footy Talks crew who help us put this all together. Edwin, Kevin, Sophia. Huge thank you to all of you for listening and interacting. You guys always bring the heat every week in the comments section. We love that and definitely appreciate it. And we've got some Gold Cup on the horizon as well, and plenty more to look forward to. So until Tuesday, have a
hold
great
on,
week,
Mitch.
everyone.
Someone's calling out for the Singh injury report. Is it worth doing, Michael?
After show.
I have something, but like,
all right,
up to you guys.
Hold on. No, we got to do it.
Let me get through my whole outro.
I did. I absolutely did. Just so you're gonna have to do it again. Here we go.
It's the Michael Singh injury report.
Such a snappy tune.
Just for the clip. We're just doing that just for the clip. I'll go really quickly here. So Quinton Westberg is still out dealing with a hand injury. Achara, he's back in training, but he's still out. And Justin Morrow's questionable with a lower back injury. Other than that, this TFC team's healthy. Oh, international duty. What I've heard is it's just Jonathan Osorio and Richie Larea
that's
who have left for Canada camp, which means Io Akinola, I think, is still in the mix for tomorrow's match. And the reason being for that could be just how much lack of depth TFC have up top. And no offense to Patrick Mullins, Dom Dwyer, but this is a team that needs goals right now, needs results, and Io Akinola is just that important to this TFC team right now. So perhaps that's the reason being, but keep an eye out for that. So other than that, Kamar Lawrence is still with the club. He mentioned that Jamaica wants him, but he he needs to find a way to
He
get
wanted to
results
get
in
a
this
win
game.
first.
Before departing for that Gold Cup, and then there's a 10-day layoff after tomorrow's match for that Gold Cup. So I think those players will only miss perhaps maybe one more match as a result of the Gold Cup on the 18th against the States. But we'll see. But yeah, that's it for the injury report. We can wrap up again. Go ahead, Mitch.
Go ahead, Mitch.
All right, that was fun. Goodbye, everybody.
Wait, someone's got to play the closing guy.